Black Wall Street. When you hear the term Black Wall Street, what do you think of? Some may think of an oxymoron because Wall Street means economic prosperity. And unfortunately, black, as it has to do with black people in America, are usually not associated with economic prosperity. It's actually the exact opposite. To those in the know, it may bring images of Tulsa, Oklahoma, specifically the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a very economically prosperous community in the early 1900s in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But there were other African American communities who were just as economically prosperous, communities that may not be as famous as Greenwood, unfortunately famous for two things: for the economic prosperity, and two, for the worst act of domestic terrorism and racial genocide that occurred on American soil in that 2-day Holocaust, where they murdered countless numbers of African Americans and injured and destroyed business between May 31st and June 1st of 1921. But there were other communities that may not be as famous, such as Haiti, Hayti, in Durham, North Carolina. Bronzeville, Bronzeville, in Chicago. Sweet Auburn in Atlanta. West 9th Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. Farish, Farish, Farish Street in Jackson, Mississippi. And Jackson Ward, 2 words, Jackson Ward in Richmond, Virginia. So you see, there were lots of prosperous communities during that time after the end of the Civil War. As a matter of fact, it was Booker T. Washington, the founder of the Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama, who coined the phrase Negro Wall Street for the Greenwood community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, due to all of the black professionals that resided there, doctors and lawyers and dentists and business people and such. Now, we can first, now, when I think about it, it is incredible and amazing when you think of it. At the time, this is after the Civil War, right? When all of these slaves are now free, but discrimination is still strong, and you couldn't live anywhere, and no one wanted to sell to you. You couldn't go to the movies because it was whites only. You couldn't go to the doctor or the hospital. You couldn't go to the butcher. You know what I mean? You couldn't function in this society because you were undesirable. So what do you do when the larger society as a whole have told you by their laws, by their treatment, by their violence, by their crime, when they have told you by the signs on the store that they do not want you? What do? You do what they did. They said, if they don't want our money and they won't serve us in their restaurants, in their hotels, in their movies, in their movie theater, in their hospitals, in their clinics, in their dry cleaners, in their funeral homes, then we will have to be self-sufficient and take care of ourselves. That's what we are missing. That's what black people are missing during this time. Integration has stolen that from you. They said necessity is the mother of invention. Why were they like the way they were because they had to be. They had to be because there was no option B. A lot of times, people have to go to option B when option A is not available. Option A was not available. You couldn't go to the white movie theater, so you got to make your own. But because in this society now, we are able to, I believe integration destroyed, the same way integration destroyed the ABA, right? I think the American Basketball Association, when they merged with the NBA, because they had to have their own black league, because you black players couldn't play with white players. So you had to have your own. Dr. J and all these guys, they came from the ABA. But when integration came, they said, we don't need this anymore, when that's what has sustained you. And they left it, went to the NBA. Same thing with the historically black colleges and universities, HBC. When that was created as a necessity. They didn't want us in their colleges, so we got to make our own. They didn't want us in their medical school or their dental school or their law school. We had to create our own. But then when integration came, they said, "Oh, we don't need that anymore. Let's go over here, right?" And then they could treat you the way they want. And that's the same reason. And that's the same reason. So the necessity for the black medical school, law school, dental school, business school was because they did not want you in their school. So they had to create their own. But then when integration came, we fought for integration and they got it. And then they left those schools, stopped supporting them, right? Schools that produced people like Thurgood Marshall. Then we stopped going to those schools. And then those schools stopped getting resources and begin to become almost like looked down on. So it's the same thing. It was necessity that created the Black Wall Street. They had no choice. They couldn't go to, they weren't free to go to all these stores like we are. Now look what they had, look what we had. They had to create their own funeral homes because the white funeral homes were not going to take care of their black dead. The white dentist wasn't going to take care of your black teeth. You couldn't go to the white hospital. You couldn't go to the white restaurants. You couldn't go to the white hotels. So necessity was the mother of invention. So then they put themselves together. So in these communities, we now have a bank. So now we can put our money together and we can go get a loan. We can go get a mortgage. And we'll pay interest to them because they are in our community and they will support the community. When you get paid, and then those businesses created jobs for the people in the community who supported them. When I want groceries, I go to my black grocer and I spend my money there and I get my groceries and I'm treated with respect. And they employ people from the community, right? When I want my teeth to be done, I went to the black dentist, right? When I need a haircut, I went to the barbershop. And so the dollar circulated in their community. Now, when you look at us, you said, okay, well, over 100 years later, you look at us and where is the black supermarket? Where is the black movie theater? Where are the black businesses that are employing the people that live in the community? You don't see it because of integration. And the dollar does not circulate in our community, right? Because you get paid and you're spending your money with people that are not in your community. Perfect example would be the Korean grocers. And you're spending your money. They don't live in your community. That money goes out of your community and they're spending it in their community. They employ their own. The hair store, women going in to get their hair and all this stuff. all of the customers are black, the owners are Korean, the money does not circulate in our community. So we can learn a lot from Black Wall Street. We can learn a lot from Black Wall Street. We can learn about self-reliance. We can learn about creating your own, not just being a customer, but by being an owner. And this is what we teach on this channel. You must be an owner. I'm not saying everybody has to own a business, but we have to maybe own stock, maybe not specifically own the business and running it, but you got to own stock in a business. You got to have some ownership in the business, whether that be through stocks, okay, or ETF. You have to own part of the business. We can't just work in McDonald's. We got to own a part of McDonald's as well. So I believe during this Black History Month, Black Wall Street is a perfect example to show black people living on a worse condition than we were living were able to rise above it and be self-reliant. I believe all too much that we are so dependent now on our jobs and dependent on the greater society. And we do not look to ourselves to sustain ourselves, to own our community, own our block. And people always complain and say we don't have enough money to become wealthy. But that's not true. Because if there was no money in the quote unquote ghetto black community, why would the Koreans be in there? Why would the people who own the laundromat and the dry cleaner and the pizza shop and the check cashing place and the chicken place and the fast food restaurant, why would they be in your community if there was no money to be made? The fact is there is money to be made, otherwise they wouldn't be there. But we have to change our mentality. There is money to be made, but we have to change our mentality and say, yeah, we have money. Where are we spending it? Where are we spending it? Look at our watch, look at our clothes, look at our shoes, look at our hair, look at our purse, look at our car. We have to look, where are we spending it? Where's our money going? What are we buying? Are we just buying Nike? Or are we buying stocks in Nike? Are we just buying Apple? Or are we buying stocks in Apple? We have to look at it, okay? And are we always a consumer, or are we sometimes an owner? We have to look at it. Most of the time, we're consumers, right? Especially the flashy luxury stuff, the Louis Vuitton and the Gucci and all that stuff. So during this Black History Month, let's take a look and see that we are living under better circumstances than the people who lived during Black Wall Street, but we have a worse outcome. One, their families were together. Their families were together. And two, they supported each other, right? They supported each other. We supported the black restaurants. We supported the black store and the butcher shop. They supported each other. And that way they all rose together. So Black Wall Street, very encouraging legacy. I believe it has left. Unfortunately, the destruction that ensued because of jealousy. Let's be honest, because of jealousy, because they were living so well, and the white people that was around, they were living better than them, and they became jealous, and that was a trigger because they were living so much better than the whites in the surrounding area. That was a trigger for the race riot and the racial terrorism that ensued. They did try to rebuild it. But again, during the 1930s, during the Depression, it kind of folded. It's been about 100 years now, because we said that was about 1921. Now it's been put on the Tulsa or the Oklahoma National Historical Landmarks. But it really shows us that in worse circumstances, Black people were able to thrive, not just survive. So since we're living in better condition, we should be able to get better outcomes if we would take some lessons from them. So again, the MD Investor coming with another video to increase our financial IQ so we can teach our children and break the cycle of generational poverty. MD Investor out.